Welcome to the Success Resources channel. I'm Nicholas,
And I'm Amy.
and we are diving deep into the world of Robert Kiyosaki today and his approach to building wealth.
You know, his work is really fascinating.
It is. And speaking of exciting opportunities for our listeners out there in South Africa and Singapore, you have a chance to see Robert Kiyosaki live
Yes.
at the National Achievers Congress. Make the world rich again.
I love that title.
No, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It's happening on August 23rd and 24th, 2025 at the Marina Bay Sands in Singapore.
Amazing.
Details are in the description box below.
And, you know, while we're talking about resources, we also have a free financial freedom test that you can take.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, it's a great way to kind of get some insights into your money mindset and figure out, you know, what your next steps could be on your financial journey.
I love it.
So definitely check that out. The link is in the description box as well.
Okay, let's dive into Kiyosaki's core philosophy. He has this famous saying, "The rich don't work for money, money works for them." What do you think he means by that?
Well, I think what he's getting at is instead of trading your time for money at a traditional job, you should be focusing on building a system where your money generates more money for you.
So it's not about just earning a paycheck.
No.
It's about creating wealth that continues to grow even when you're not actively working.
Exactly. And a really key way of doing that is understanding the difference between assets and liabilities.
Now, I think a lot of people have heard those terms thrown around, but what do they really mean in Kiyosaki's world?
He defines assets as things that put money in your pocket,
Okay.
and liabilities are things that take money out.
Okay, that makes sense.
So an asset is something that's either going to generate income, it appreciates in value over time, or it offers some kind of ongoing financial benefit.
Can you give me some examples?
Yeah. So, you know, rental properties that bring in consistent rent checks would be considered an asset.
Okay, so rental properties, that makes sense. What are some other examples?
Beyond real estate, you have stocks that pay dividends, businesses that generate passive income, intellectual property that earns royalties. Wow. Even things like precious metals that tend to hold their value well.
Okay.
They're all putting money in your pocket working for you.
And liabilities, on the other hand, are constantly draining your money.
Precisely. Yeah. They take money out of your pocket, usually through recurring costs, interest payments, or depreciation, which means they lose value over time.
Oh, I see.
Think of things like your credit card debt, or even a mortgage on a home that's not generating any rental income.
Interesting. Now, here's where it gets a little controversial, and I know this is something that Kiyosaki talks about in why saving money is keeping you broke. He challenges this traditional idea that we should all be saving money. Why is that?
Well, he argues that simply saving money in a traditional bank account doesn't really build wealth,
Okay.
especially in the face of things like inflation and taxes.
Right.
Inflation actually erodes the value of your savings over time.
So even though you might see that number in your savings account going up, the purchasing power of that money is actually decreasing.
Exactly. Plus, you're often taxed on any interest you earn, further reducing your returns.
Whoa.
He believes this save mentality actually keeps people trapped in a cycle of working for money instead of having their money work for them.
But wouldn't he still recommend having some savings for emergencies and unexpected expenses?
Oh, absolutely. He's not advocating for reckless spending at all.
Okay.
He stresses the importance of having a solid financial foundation.
Right.
But he believes that true wealth is built through investing in income-generating assets, not just stockpiling cash in a savings account.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the distinction. It's not about never saving. It's about shifting your focus from saving to investing in assets that will generate income and grow your wealth over time.
You got it. And that leads us to another really key concept that Kiyosaki emphasizes: cash flow.
Okay.
He believes wealth is built by having a constant stream of money flowing into your pocket,
I like that.
not just relying on a single paycheck.
Can you give me a real-world example of how this cash flow idea works?
Yeah, sure. So imagine you own a rental property. You're bringing in $1,500 a month in rent. And after paying the mortgage and property taxes, any maintenance, you have $500 left over every month.
Okay.
That $500 is your cash flow.
So even after covering the costs associated with the property, you're still pocketing an extra $500 each month, and that's on top of the fact that the property itself might be appreciating in value.
Exactly. You're essentially making money work for you, generating passive income that continues to flow in whether you're working or not.
That's incredible.
And that's the power of focusing on assets and building positive cash flow.
So let me ask you this. Kiyosaki often talks about how many people mistakenly believe owning a home is always an asset. Why does he challenge that assumption?
Well, he argues that A home only becomes a true asset when it generates income.
Okay.
So unless you're renting out a portion of your home or using it for a business, it's actually a liability.
Wait, how can my home be a liability if I own it? I'm not paying rent to someone else.
That's the common misconception, but remember, a liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket.
Okay.
So think about all the expenses that come with owning a home, your mortgage payments, your property taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance costs.
Oh, yeah.
All of those things are constantly draining your resources.
So even though you technically own the property, it's still costing you money every month, and it might not be generating any income in return. That's a really interesting perspective.
He wants us to kind of look at things through a different lens.
Yes.
It's about challenging those traditional assumptions.
Right.
And really analyzing whether something is truly an asset that's working for you or a liability that's holding you back.
This is all starting to make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So we've talked about assets, liabilities, the power of cash flow. But how does Kiyosaki suggest people actually start shifting their mindset and building wealth?
Well, he has several recommendations, and we'll dive into those more in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But one key takeaway is that it's about making a conscious choice to stop working for money and start making your money work for you.
That sounds pretty empowering.
It's about creating a system where your wealth continues to grow even when you're not actively working.
And I'm sure our listeners are eager to hear off talking about how Kiyosaki wants us to shift our mindset from working for money to having our money work for us. But how exactly do we put that into action?
One of his key recommendations is to focus on acquiring income-generating assets.
Okay.
So instead of pouring your money into things that lose value, you prioritize investments that generate passive income.
That makes sense. But what are some specific examples of assets that Kiyosaki recommends? We already talked about rental properties. What else is on his list?
He's a big advocate for real estate, but he also sees value in dividend-paying stocks.
Okay.
These allow you to earn a portion of a company's profits simply by owning shares. It's like having these mini businesses working for you in the background.
So you're essentially becoming a part owner of a company and reaping the benefits of its success.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then he's also a fan of businesses, especially those that can generate passive income.
Good.
Think about online businesses, subscription services, or even creating and selling intellectual property like books or online courses.
Wow.
So instead of trading your time for money at a traditional job, you're building something that can potentially generate income even while you sleep.
Yeah, that's the dream.
Right. And the beauty of these types of assets is that they can often be scaled up, meaning you can increase your income potential exponentially.
Okay. I'm starting to see the appeal of this approach, but I imagine it also takes a certain level of financial knowledge and savvy to kind of navigate these different investment options.
You're absolutely right. And that's why Kiyosaki stresses the importance of financial education.
Yeah.
He believes it's crucial to equip yourself with the knowledge and skills you need to make informed decisions about your money. He actually says financial education is the key to unlocking true wealth.
He does.
Yeah.
He emphasizes the need to understand things like financial statements, investment strategies, and even tax laws.
Right.
This empowers you to make smart choices and avoid costly mistakes.
So it's not just about following someone else's advice blindly. It's about taking ownership of your financial future and educating yourself so you can make sound decisions.
Exactly. He encourages people to read books, attend seminars, and even seek out mentorship from successful investors.
Oh, wow.
He believes knowledge is one of the most valuable assets you can acquire.
That's a great point. Now, another concept that Kiyosaki talks about, and one that I think might make some people uncomfortable, is this idea of leverage. Can you explain what he means by that and why he sees it as such a powerful tool for wealth building?
Leverage is essentially using borrowed money to control a larger asset than you could with your own funds alone.
Okay.
A common example is using a mortgage to purchase a rental property.
So you're leveraging the bank's money to acquire an asset that can potentially generate income and appreciate in value.
But isn't borrowing money risky? It seems like it could magnify your losses just as easily as your gains.
It's true that leverage can amplify both profits and losses.
Okay.
That's why Kiyosaki emphasizes the importance of using it wisely and responsibly.
Right.
He believes it's a tool that should be used strategically, not recklessly.
So it's not about taking on as much debt as possible. It's about using debt strategically to acquire income-producing assets that will ultimately generate positive cash flow.
Exactly. And he also talks about different types of leverage. So financial leverage, like a mortgage, is one type.
Okay.
But there's also operational leverage, which involves using systems and processes to amplify your efforts.
Interesting.
And then network leverage, which is about building relationships with people who can help you achieve your goal.
So it's not just about borrowing money. It's about leveraging all kinds of resources, financial, operational, and social, to accelerate your path to wealth.
Right. Kiyosaki sees leverage as a key ingredient in the wealth building equation.
Now, shifting gears a bit, I know Kiyosaki also emphasizes the importance of building multiple streams of income. Why is this such a crucial part of his philosophy?
He believes that relying solely on a single income source, especially a traditional job, can be incredibly risky.
Okay.
You're essentially putting all your eggs in one basket. What happens if you lose that job or the industry you're in takes a downturn?
Yeah, you're left with no income and potentially a lot of expenses to cover. It definitely doesn't sound very secure.
Exactly. Kiyosaki advocates for diversifying your income streams so you're not reliant on any one source.
Okay.
He believes this creates more financial stability and resilience,
Right.
and it opens up more opportunities for growth.
Okay, so instead of just having one job, you might have a rental property generating passive income,
Mhm.
a side hustle you're passionate about, and maybe even some investments that are paying dividends.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that it's not about working harder, it's about working smarter.
I like that.
It's about finding ways to leverage your skills, your knowledge, and your resources to create income streams that work for you even while you're sleeping.
It's about having your money work for you instead of the other way around.
Exactly. And this leads us to another really crucial aspect of Kiyosaki's philosophy mindset.
Okay. We've talked a lot about the practical strategies, investing in assets, leveraging resources, building multiple income streams. But why does he place so much emphasis on mindset?
He believes that your mindset is ultimately what determines your financial success.
Hmm.
He argues that wealthy people think about money differently than those who struggle financially.
So it's not just about having the right knowledge and skills, it's about having the right attitude and beliefs about money.
You got it. He believes that successful people tend to have an abundance mindset.
Okay.
They believe there are unlimited opportunities out there and that they have the power to create their own wealth. They're not afraid to take calculated risks, and they see failure as a learning opportunity.
So it's about shifting from a scarcity mindset where you're constantly worried about not having enough to an abundance mindset where you believe in your ability to create wealth and attract prosperity.
Exactly. And he also talks about the importance of being proactive and taking control of your financial destiny.
Okay.
Don't wait for someone else to hand you a raise or a promotion. Go out there and create your own opportunities.
So it's about becoming the architect of your own financial future, not just a passive bystander.
Right, and that's a really empowering message. He's essentially saying that you have the power to change your financial situation no matter where you're starting from.
This has been a really eye-opening conversation, Amy. I feel like we barely scratched the surface of Kiyosaki's philosophy, but we've covered so much ground already. What's one key takeaway you hope our listeners are walking away with so far?
I think the most important thing is to remember that building wealth is a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
It's about continually learning, growing, and adapting. And it's about taking ownership of your financial future and making conscious choices that align with your goals.
Yeah. It's about shifting your mindset from being a consumer to becoming a creator of wealth.
Yes.
And it's about understanding that true wealth isn't just about having a lot of money.
Right?
It's about having the freedom and flexibility to live life on your own terms.
Beautifully said. Now, in our final segment, we'll explore some of the criticisms of Kiyosaki's approach and talk about how you can start applying his principles to your own life, regardless of your current financial situation.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive into Robert Kiyosaki's wealth-building philosophy. We've covered a lot of ground from assets and liabilities to the importance of financial education and having the right mindset. But before we wrap up, I think it's important to acknowledge that, Kiyosaki's ideas aren't without their critics.
That's true. Some people argue that his approach is overly simplistic
Yeah.
and that he sometimes glosses over the complexities of the financial world.
I've heard some people say that he focuses too much on real estate and doesn't give enough attention to other investment options.
Yes, and there are also those who criticize his use of anecdotes and personal stories,
Right.
arguing that they don't always reflect the realities of the average person's financial situation.
So how do we reconcile these criticisms with the valuable insights he offers? What's your take on that?
I think it's important to remember that no single approach to building wealth is perfect or universally applicable.
Right.
Kiyosaki's work offers a framework for thinking about money,
Yeah.
but it's up to each individual to adapt those principles to their own circumstances and risk tolerance.
So it's not about blindly following his advice. It's about taking what resonates with you and using it to inform your own financial decisions.
Exactly. It's about using his ideas as a starting point for your own journey of financial empowerment.
Okay.
He provides a roadmap, but you have to choose the route that's right for you.
That makes a lot of sense. So for our listeners who are inspired by Kiyosaki's philosophy and want to start putting his principles into action, what are some practical steps they can take? Where do they begin?
Well, I think the first step is to really assess your current financial situation.
Okay.
Take a close look at your income, your expenses, your assets, and your liabilities. Get a clear picture of where you stand financially.
Kiyosaki actually has a tool for this, doesn't he? It's called a cash flow quadrant.
Yes, the cash flow quadrant helps you identify which quadrant you're currently in.
Okay.
Employee, self-employed, business owner, or investor.
Right.
And this can provide valuable insights into your financial mindset and help you identify areas for growth.
And we've included a link to a free cash flow quadrant assessment in the description box below, so be sure to check that out.
Once you have a solid understanding of your current financial situation, the next step is to start shifting your mindset.
Okay.
Start thinking about how you can make your money work for you. Look for opportunities to generate passive income, whether it's through real estate investments or starting a side hustle.
And remember, it's not about getting rich quick.
No.
It's about taking consistent action, building good financial habits, and making smart choices over time.
Absolutely. And don't forget the importance of financial education.
Yeah?
Read books, take courses, attend seminars, and connect with other like-minded individuals who are on a similar path.
Yeah.
The more you learn about money, the more empowered you'll become to make sound financial decisions.
And for our listeners who are ready to take a deeper dive into Kiyosaki's world, we highly recommend checking out the National Achievers Congress, where you can see him live.
Yes.
It's a fantastic opportunity to learn from one of the most influential voices in personal finance. You can find all the details in the description box below.
And don't forget to take advantage of that free financial freedom test.
Right.
It's a great way to gain personalized insights into your money mindset and identify areas where you can grow. The link for that is in the description box as well.
Well, Amy, this has been an incredibly insightful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope you found this deep dive into Robert Kiyosaki's philosophy informative and inspiring. Remember, building wealth is a journey, and it all starts with taking that first step.
So what will your first step be?